And we are on the next part of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. And Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, some things that we mentioned last week was about his khalq and about how Allah Azza wa Jal created him. And the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal, He took time to create him as well in front of the angels. And that he done in stage by stage. And that all that was happening in front of the angels. And it was happening in front of Iblis. And Iblis was getting jealous because Iblis was wanting a prestigious status in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, when Allah Azza wa Jal had created Adam alayhi salam, and then He had blown into him the ruh, or the life itself, then Adam alayhi salam came alive, and Allah Azza wa Jal then had the angels ask him about this creation and what would be the purpose of this creation when already he's being praised and so on. Then Allah Azza wa Jal revealed, then He inspired into Adam alayhi salam the names. Now about these names that Adam alayhi salam gave, these names, we did some tafsir last week, and one of the things I wanted to say with the lessons that we learning from this is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He is our teacher. He is our teacher, and He has said in the first part of the Quran, when the Quran came down, اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم, the one who is teaching by the pen. So our ultimate teacher is Allah Azza wa Jal, and we have to also understand that from this asma, they say that is the lughat, is the different languages. So they say that Adam alayhi salam, he knew all the languages that would be created until the Day of Judgment. So he had that within himself to know the different and how to say something in a different language as well. Allahu Alam, Allah, we don't have an authentic narration to say that, but these are from some of the tafsirs that are there. And so what we learn from this is that the ability to have, whatever neurotransmitters we've got inside our minds, our forefather Adam alayhi salam had all of that in his mind. And the thing is that the human is so unique that the brain itself, we only use a very small percentage of our brains. We only use a very small percentage. Now the rest of the brain, what is it doing and how does it function and how are we able to sort of do something? I just want to share something with you, that there are certain people in the world who are called savants. Now savants are people whom Allah Azza wa Jal, He opens certain transmitters, He makes certain connections inside the brain because of either the way they were born or when they have an actual accident. If they have an accident, so maybe they've hit their head somewhere, or they've fallen somewhere, and it's particularly with the brain. So what this does is, different savants have different things. What happens, all of a sudden this individual becomes very knowledgeable in one area of a particular science. So you can search this, savants, S-A-V-A-N-T-S, savants, and you can find on the internet many different savants, and there's clips of them, there's even documentaries on them. One, for example, a bang to the head suddenly might make somebody so proficient in learning so many languages. This is one of the things that there's one in Germany at the moment right now. I think he can learn a language, I think in a matter of days. I think in a week he can learn an entire language. And they put him to the test as well. And the scientists can't work out how is it that this person, is able to do this. There's another one who actually knows 20 languages. 20 languages, and he's got these thrills just for learning new words, and he can tell you bread in so many different ways, and these are not languages of one particular area of the world. They're scattered from Russia to parts of America, right down to sort of parts of Africa and so on. This is one thing. Sometimes because of the damage there's a damage, but then there's also something that happens in the brain. They can become brilliant mathematicians. Brilliant in maths. I mean, there's one savant who can tell you pi, if you know in maths, he can tell you to the 42nd thousandth, I think, numeral, and all off by heart. This is all, and the way he sees it is a landscape. He doesn't see numbers like me and you. He sees a landscape, and he sees beautiful. He sees a number 1 in a particular shape, number 2 in a particular shape, number 3. You give him any sum, he'll work it out on the spot for you. And they don't know how they do this. There's another one that he's got this, like you show him, you give him clay. He always has to have clay. And this is from a very small age. And he'll mold for you any animal that he sees. Any human, any animal that he sees, he can mold it. Another one is proficient in sort of language. Another one might be proficient in music, where they will just play and play and play. Any, they'll get new musical things in their heads, and they'll just play the piano or whatever it is. They'll carry on playing it. Now, sometimes savants have one area, and sometimes savants can have up to 15 different areas of brilliance in their intelligence and knowledge. But they have deficiencies as well. The deficiencies might be that they might be antisocial, they might not be able to get on with people, they might not be able to sort of brush their teeth properly or wear their clothes properly. So these are certain deficiencies that they have. Now, what needs to be said here is that just because of a certain thing inside what's happened in the brain, we don't know what exactly has happened. But Allah Azza wa Jal, the same man who's got the same brain, who never knew any of this in his whole life, suddenly he has a bang to his head and is able to remember, is able to create or know all of this information out of nowhere. So what I believe, and I think scientists are also alluding, is that every human being has all of this in their head. When Adam alayhi salam was created, what Allah Azza wa Jal had done is that He had just connected those transmitters, neurotransmitters, or those cells or whatever it is in his mind, and he was able to instantly just know all this information. Because the way Allah's created the brain is that it holds all this information already. All we're doing is in life is we're using a very small part of the brain somewhere, and few transmitters and few neurotransmitters are linking with one another, and we don't know which ones really and how it's all being linked together, and we're able to then learn new information by those few transmitters that are operating inside our brains. But if Allah Azza wa Jal right now was to make us just learn a new language just like that, He can make us do it. And the thing is, with Adam alayhi salam knowing all this information, another thing we learn, and one of my teachers said this is, in your life, everything that we hear, everything we see, everything we hear, everything we perceive, it has all been recorded inside the brain. Now, you might forget something, but you haven't actually forgotten it. No one actually ever forgets anything. But you're made to forget, or you're made to lose that memory for a partial amount of time. They say that when we get to the Day of Judgment, then our eyesight will be very sharp, in the sense that we will be able to remember everything that has happened in our lives. Everything that has happened in our lives. And one of the things is that the brain holds all the information. Now, sometimes, when you knew something and then you forgot something, and then after that you're trying to remember it again, and then you do remember it. Occasionally you remember things that you never remembered. Sometimes certain things trigger off certain memories. So you might smell a particular smell that you had smelled when you were like 6 years old, and you had certain things that were associated to it. As soon as you get that same smell at the age of 30, you'll straight away remember all those images that are linked to that. Now, the brain is fascinating, and how Allah has created it. But what that teacher said is that you haven't forgotten anything. Everything is there. It's all about Allah Azza wa Jal making that come back in your mind. And that's why we have, certain things to try and remember. We send salutations to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We say, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. In Surah Taha, ayah number 25, and so on. You find that Allah Azza wa Jal, gives us a way to make dua, to try and open the mind and open, this whole thing, so that we can absorb all of this and remember all of this. And the other thing, the interesting thing is that we never forget anything. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, particularly with the Quran, he said that don't say that, if you forget a verse of the Quran, this is in Hadith of Bukhari and so on, other books. When you forget a verse of the Quran, don't say nasitu ayata kada wa kada. Don't say that I've forgotten this particular verse, but say unsituha. Say that I've been made to forget that, because nasit can also mean in Arabic, nasit can mean the taraktu, means that I've left it. I've left this. Nasit not only means forgetting, but means that you've left it. So it means leaving it out of your mind. So it's not a good thing to say that I've left the Quran out of my heart or out of my mind. It's better to say that I've been made to do so, or been made to forget. So anyway, Adam a.s. had this brilliant mind. Now this brilliant mind itself was blowing Iblis, because Iblis never had that mind. Now jinns, one of the things that they have, because Iblis was a jinn, is that they have sur'atul jasad, or they have a very sort of fast body, and they're able to travel really fast. Though the human being competes with him with his sur'atul dhahan, which is the fastness of his intelligence. So he's really intelligent compared to the jinns, but the jinn is really fast in terms of his body and his strength as well. The jinns have a great amount of strength that Allah has given them, whereas the humans don't compare with that. But the brilliance of the human mind supersedes the jinns. It supersedes. That's why one of the things we have in the Quran is inna kayda shaytani kana da'ifa. The plots of the shaitan is weak. Allah has said that to us. Because if you as a human being want to overcome the shaitan, you've got a super mind that can do that. And it just takes your willpower to say that, I'm not going to be taken over by the shaitan, and you can do it. Any human being can do it. So Allah hasn't created the power of good and the power of evil equal. Just like, like the Bible might want us to believe. Allah Azza wa Jalla has created good much stronger than the evil that resides wherever it is in the world, whether it's from the jinns or it's from others. And the other thing that we understand is that when it comes to Iblis and his jealousy that he had, the jealousy he had was from a number of things, and they were brewing and they were building, and he wasn't doing anything to try and suppress his jealousy. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He's given us ourselves, the humans or the jinns, the power to overcome our own jealousy. His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about a proper jealousy that you can have, a true one. Like he said that none of you can really become jealous except in a person who has the Quran inside him, and a man who has the Quran inside him and is reading it by night and by day. Or a man who's been given a lot of money and he's given a lot of charity by night and by day. That's the only two people you can be jealous of, meaning that you could be envious in a good way. Now, in Arabic you have hasad, which is jealousy, and you have envy, where you have ghibta. Now ghibta is when you envy someone in a nice way. So it means that you envy, like you say that person, you say that person has got that thing. I wish that I can also get the same thing like him. That's envy in a nice way. Where jealousy or hasad, the word is hasad in Arabic, and jealousy we use in English, the one that is haram is when you see a person who's got a gift and you look at them and you say to yourself, you know what, I want to have that in me as well, but at the expense of that person losing his or her quality. So it means that you wanted, this is a very different thing. In the first one, you wanted, but you want that gift in the other person to remain as well. So if they've got a lot of money, you want them to have their money and whatever, to have salam and peace with all their money. But at the same time, you want to become a rich person. If it's beauty, you want to remain beautiful, and you want the other person to also have, you want to become beautiful and you want the other person to have their beauty intact. But if it was hasad, what it would mean is that you get jealous and you think, that wealth should be mine. That beauty should be mine. That person doesn't deserve that wealth. That person doesn't deserve that beauty. I deserve that. I should have had that. I should have had that intelligence. Now, this is haram, where you feel in a negative way and you want the zawalun ni'mah, or you want the other person to lose their good quality that Allah has given them. That is the hasad that Allah Azza wa Jalla has prohibited us from. Now, when you look back into Iblis and Adam alayhi salam, his story, you find that Iblis' jealousy was of the second type, where he wanted Adam alayhi salam to lose his position and for Iblis to gain that position. Had he had an envious thing where he would have looked at Adam and thought, wow, this individual, Allah has given him a great position, and he's taught him all these words and language and all that. I wish I too could learn all of that, but I wish the best for Adam and I wish the best he could have that and continue with that. If he had that, then there would have been nothing wrong with it. But of course he didn't have that. So these are some of the great lessons that we learn from this. The other thing is that when Allah Azza wa Jal now has got Adam alayhi salam now created, and he's talking and he's moving, and he's got now the angels there, and they're questioning, and they've been overpowered. Because wow, they're all overpowered. They've already said Subhanak. We say that you, O Allah Azza wa Jal, you're the one who is free from everything that's imperfect, everything that is negative. La ilma lana, we have no knowledge except that what you have taught us. Now, we see humbleness come straight away in front of the Master himself. And what we've got to understand is the angels are the closest to Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, yes, human beings can get closer to Allah, but we've got to really work for it. Anbiya alayhi salam, the prophets are closer to Allah than the angels. That's our belief. The Anbiya and the prophets are closer to Allah than the angels. Because Anbiya alayhi salam, they have a heavy body as well as they have a good ruh and a soul, and they're able to get, they've got like desires like human beings have. They've never sinned. They will not, they've never sinned in their life. They're not of the sinful nature. However, they do have temptation inside them, whereas the angels don't have any temptation inside them. And for that reason, Anbiya alayhi salam are much higher than the angels. However, what we understand is that the humbleness the angels displayed in front of Allah, we learn from that the angels themselves, being so close to Allah, one of their sifat and one of the qualities was being humble. And being humble is something that Allah likes, and you are close to God for showing that humbleness in front of Allah. Imam Shafi rahimahullah, he said, and this is a beautiful statement of his, he said, كُلَّمَا ازْدَدْتُ عِلْمًا ازْدَدْتُ جَهْلًا. He said, every time I gained some knowledge, I gained ignorance with it. Or I became more ignorant. Every time I increased myself in knowledge, I so much so increased myself in ignorance. Now what did he mean by that? What he meant by that was that knowledge itself, you can gain today. You can say, wow, I read this book. But Imam Shafi was trying to say that yesterday, you never even knew that knowledge. So now today you found out how much of an ignorant person you were yesterday. And today you also find out that there are so many other things that you don't know. So when you read another book tomorrow, or somebody teaches you something new tomorrow, you should become more humble and say that, you know what, I was so backward that just a moment ago I didn't even know this. And every time you learn something, you think, subhanallah, I didn't even know that. Now that follows the same thing with the angels. They said straight away, subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. They said, you are so perfect, O Allah, that we have no knowledge except for that which you have taught us. And it teaches us as Muslims and mu'mins to be humble in front of Allah, because Allah Azza wa Jal has got all knowledge and we don't have knowledge. And anyone in this dunya that teaches us something, we should be humble in front of them. That's why Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he said in one of his statements that anyone who teaches me even a letter, I become his slave. If he wants to, he can buy me. If he wants to, he can sell me. Meaning that I'm so indebted to the person who teaches me something, because knowledge is something that is not cheap, and knowledge is something that comes to us through sacrifice, and we all have a duty that we owe to the one who has taught us something.